Hello everybody, Argent here with a reactionary review of The Lodge. So I just got out of watching this movie. It was only playing in one location in Toronto, so it was a bit of a hike to get there, but I think it was worth it. It was interesting if nothing else. So I guess before we start talking about the movie, did I like it? Did I dislike it? I liked it. If for nothing else, then the cinematography and music were really good. And just in general, it was a very well put together movie. It was kind of artistic, an art film in a good way. So I'll give it credit for that. Also, the main actress is a QT, so that always kind of helps. That's kind of like a thing in horror movies, where even if it's like a bad horror movie, there's normally some QTs in it, and there's normally some interesting music and some interesting cinematography, and the premise is normally interesting. So I find I can sit through a bad horror movie where I can't sit through a bad rom-com or something. But I digress. So how to describe this movie? This movie was kind of like Antichrist meets Hereditary meets It Comes at Night, and a bit more artsy, I guess is the way I'd put it, but it really reminded me of all those different movies. It was definitely surreal and very existentialist. It's something I kind of have a mixed feeling about. I do like surrealism, I think, at least in theory. I mean, my book, No Chance, is surrealist and very stream of consciousness. At the same time, though, Serpa said I dislike movies where there's not a lot of exposition and where things aren't really explained. So I need him or somebody other than me to watch this movie and tell me if they think it has a lot of exposition. I think everything was pretty much explained. I just don't really understand the symbolism in it. So, The Lodge. The Lodge is the story of, there's only, I think, 5 characters in the movie. So I'll just refer to them by role because I can't really remember most of their names. So it starts out with the mother of 2 kids going to talk to her husband, who tells her that he's going to divorce her and marry a woman named Grace. Upon hearing this, the mother goes and commits suicide. Her children, she was apparently fairly devoutly Catholic, despite the divorce thing and the suicide thing. And her children kind of understand the ramifications of her mother killing herself. And they go into a deep depression over the belief that she went to hell because she killed herself. I think the church's modern interpretation of that is a lot more nuanced. I think it used to be suicides always went to hell, but now there's a lot more kind of understanding of how mental illness works. And in a lot of cases, people who commit suicide aren't really in control or mentally responsible. But yeah, so that happened. So we cut to 6 months later, and they're having Thanksgiving, and the father's talking to his 2 kids, and he's like, Grace has suggested that you go to the lodge we have over Christmas. So you guys can meet her, you can get to kind of know each other a bit better, because she's going to be your mother, because I'm going to marry her. So the kids don't like her because they blame her, obviously, for their mother's death. They blame her for her mother's death, but also there's some thing that she's been involved with in the past. See, it turns out that she was born into a cult, a murder-suicide cult, and every member of the cult committed suicide except for her, because she was the one who was supposed to be left alive to spread the teachings of the cult to the rest of the world. So, how they were killed is, I can't remember if they took poison or they got shot or something, but kind of a traumatic thing from her childhood is finding them all lying on beds with blankets over their heads and tape with repent written on it, plastered across their mouths.
But it was intentional.
I guess that's maybe kind of a reference to like some Christian groups where they have life. I don't think I wouldn't really call this an anti-Christian movie. I'd say it's more kind of a mental illness or a PTSD movie. But like as a Christian, it didn't really offend me. So maybe my detection isn't really good. So anyway, so they're scared of her. So they all go to the lodge together. And it initially is like super awkward. The kids really hate her. The father has to go work. So he's like, okay, I'm just gonna leave my mentally unstable QT with my two super depressed, openly hostile kids, and this is gonna work out, guys. This is gonna be great. So they're kind of hanging out. Grace, who's the girl he's gonna marry, starts to sleepwalk. She takes medication, probably antipsychotics, for PTSD and perhaps schizophrenia. So she wakes up one morning and everything's gone. Everything's gone away. All of her, what is it called? Like, her medication's gone. All their clothes are gone. Most of the food's gone. The generator's gone out. The pipes are frozen. It's a mess. So we have kind of the middle part of the movie is them just kind of trying to survive. Them just kind of like trying to figure out what's even going on. And eventually you start to see like hints that maybe something's happened, something like supernatural. They start to find the kids start to say, I think we're dead. I think this is like, how would we know if we were dead or not? And Grace is starting to freak out, especially since she doesn't have her medication anymore. And she starts to kind of wander the house at night, holding a revolver. So she's getting freaked out. I think Grace is realizing that she's losing control of herself. So she decides to go out and trying to find a way out of where they are. So she goes out and she walks around in the snow. She doesn't even have her coat. She makes like a makeshift cloak out of like a blanket or a rug or something. And after like a full day, she comes back. I think, I'm not sure if she got lost and she deliberately made her way back there, or she was just going in circles or something like that. But she winds up getting back to the lodge. So that happens, and that's pretty creepy. The kids then show her I'm sorry, I'm just losing my train of thought. A newspaper article that shows all three of them died of asphyxiation from a gas. Because there was a gas heater briefly, and the boy had said, the one kid said that he had a dream of them asphyxiating to death from the gas heater. So basically at this point in time, she's starting to think, oh, they're dead, they're in purgatory, they have to repent in order to make their way to heaven from here. And this is really freaking Grace out, and she doesn't really believe it. She thinks that the kids just stole everything and hid it, that they just took her pills, and they just keep denying. They're like, we didn't do it. We think we're dead. We think we've suffocated, and this is purgatory we're stuck in. So that all happens, and to kind of prove to Grace that they're in purgatory, the boy hangs himself and shows that he can't die because he's already dead. So this causes Grace to completely like go into psycho mode. The kids are like constantly like praying and like doing penances and stuff like that. So Grace goes completely crazy, and she starts like goes outside and starts like dragging herself through the snow in circles. She eventually starts like burning herself. Like she takes coals out of the fire and kneels on them while praying, and things just go completely like crazy. And then the kids realize that this whole reveal of this whole time that this was just gaslighting, and they actually had all the stuff in the basement, and they had turned off the generator. It being like -20 though, they find they can't turn the generator back on, and the pipes are frozen. And they can't charge their phones and call their father, so they're kind of screwed anyways. I guess they have more food and like warm clothing now, but yeah, they're kind of screwed. So meanwhile, Grace has just kind of lost it. She's convinced they're in purgatory now. She's convinced that the like kids are right and that they died and they can't leave here until she acknowledges her role in their mother committing suicide, because that was kind of the kids' plan. The kids' plan was to gaslight her into thinking that her actions had caused their mother's suicide, and that God had punished them by killing them and sending them here so that they would repent for their crimes. But I mean, it's working too well, and she's kind of convinced. So she starts doing like crazy stuff. Like she starts like she burns the little girl's doll, thinking that it's an idol that's tying her to this place. And the father eventually shows up, and she shoots him, thinking that killing him, the thing that led to everything, will liberate her. She then ties up the two kids, and together they sing a hymn. She then walks over and puts the same repent tape that had been put over the people in her cult who had died, and that just kind of cuts to black. And I guess we're expected to believe that she just shot the kids and herself, or maybe just the kids, or maybe she shot herself and like let the little girl go in kind of remembrance of what happened with her. We don't really know. The ending's deliberately ambiguous. So it's interesting that this was not a supernatural horror movie, and it was really set up that way. And the twist that it was gaslighting, I mean, you as the viewer like initially thought it was gaslighting, but then you were kind of gaslit into thinking it wasn't gaslighting, if that makes sense. There's a lot of levels to this. So that was enjoyable. I have to read kind of maybe a summary of it. My immediate thought, though, at the end when the kids were tied to a chair was, and she was probably going to kill them, is, what do you get? Here's a joke. What do you get when you gaslight the sole survivor of a suicide murder cult into thinking they're dead? You get what you fucking deserve. It was kind of hard for me to feel bad for the kids, because I mean, I probably would have gone crazy. They gaslit the shit out of her. But overall, I have to say, pretty good movie. Some of you might like it more than me, but I'd probably recommend it if you get a chance to watch it. I don't know if I'd run out to see it if it's not like nearby, but good film, solid. This is Argent, signing out.